Welcome back, everybody. It is time for another, probably quicker episode of Roadie Storytime. These are the stories of just my experiences of being on tour with different bands. As always, we're filming this live on Twitch. Hello, Twitch chat. You're still in timeout, but some of you will probably make it on screen. If you're watching on YouTube later and you'd like to join us for when we tell these stories live or we do reactions or talk about other music stuff, you can go to twitch.tv/TankTheTech. But for today's episode of Roadie Storytime, this is one that was brought up quite a lot by people in chat. I want to tell you guys the story of how I accidentally, yes, accidentally, became the tour manager for Electric Callboy. And this is kind of funny because a lot of you guys that watch this channel already know, like, I'm currently tour managing Electric Callboy now. I've been working for them for a couple of years, but this was never really a planned thing, and I never really expected this to happen. It actually just kind of came together by chance, and really without them ever really asking me ahead of time if I even wanted to tour manage their tour. So if there's anybody coming across my channel for the first time, if you're not familiar with Electric Callboy, they are an electronic metal band from Germany. And I first discovered them from doing reactions on my YouTube, actually. Had no idea who they were, even though they've been a band for, 14 years at this point? I think they officially founded in 2010. Discovered them off their music video to Hypa Hypa. Which really, I would say, is the moment that they kind of started blowing up internationally, and a lot of people knew who they were. Before that, I was unfamiliar, but I started checking out some of their other music, their newer stuff, their older stuff, and I really liked them. And I think one of the misconceptions, too, is when I started working for them, people thought that I actually knew them really well, and I really didn't. After I had done my first reaction to them, I think they had reposted it, and they may have commented on one of my videos, and kind of just, messaged them on Instagram here and there. And this was back in 2020 and 2021. Didn't really know the guys at all, but on a couple occasions I had them on my channel for interviews when I was doing the podcast and stuff. And they always seemed like really cool guys. Well, fast forward to about 2022, I was still off the road full time because when the pandemic happened and we all got sent home, and then my wife and I found out that she was pregnant, we were going to have our first kid, I decided I wasn't going to tour full time anymore. So I hadn't taken any more gigs. I was still at home, just kind of hanging out. And one day I got a random phone call from a German number, which was kind of funny at the time thinking about it, and didn't answer it. I don't answer. Does anybody answer phone numbers that they don't know when they're calling, especially if they're international? I don't. Didn't get a voicemail, but got a WhatsApp message and said, "Hey, this is Jens. I'm the manager for Electric Callboy. Just wanted to know if you had time for a quick phone call." So I called him back immediately. I thought he was just going to ask me about maybe doing some more promo with the band on the YouTube channel or something like that. Like, an interview with Kevin or Nico or something like that. But he's like, "Hey, so I just wanted to talk to you about something. The band is planning on doing a North American tour in 2022. We haven't been over there in years and years. And after talking to the band," and at that point in the conversation, I thought maybe they were going to ask me to come out as a YouTuber or something. Like, it had never happened before, but I didn't think they were going to ask me to work for them. But he was like, "I wanted to know, we'd feel more comfortable if we had an American on the tour with us that knows the venues and knows the market. And I wanted to know, on behalf of the band, if you'd be interested coming out and guitar teching for the band on their tour when they're over there." And it was really cool. I'm not gonna lie, it felt really good, like getting asked that, especially because they didn't really know me. Obviously I've talked about my background on YouTube enough where people kind of know. And I guess at the end of the day, like, some of these people probably didn't really know if I was legit or not. I mean, I'm just a guy on YouTube talking about stuff. People make up shit all the time. I could have been over embellishing everything I've ever done and nobody would ever know, but I haven't. Yeah, as Vix just said, they kind of took a chance. So they reached out to me and asked me if I'd guitar tech. And I believe this was about, like, I don't know, this was somewhere midway through 2022. And the tour was supposed to happen in late 2022. So I was like, I would actually love to do this, but let me talk to my wife because we have a baby at home and I had never planned on touring full time again. He's like, well, let us know as soon as possible. So I talked to my wife, and it was kind of an interesting conversation because I kind of expected her to say, I'd rather you stay home, with us, because that was the plan, to be fair. It was my full-time touring days were over. And, technically this wasn't full time. And I even told her, I was like, it's one tour. It's like 3 weeks. I think it'd be cool to just get my name out there more, work with an international band. And she was like, you know what? Yeah, let's go for it. Go for it, see what happens. So I called Jens back and I said, yeah, I'll do it. Just keep me in the loop. And if you guys need help with, production contacts or contacts for buses or transportation or anything, just let me know. And, I'll help in however way I can. For this 2022 tour, I was supposed to be their guitar tech. And as the tour kind of got closer, I wasn't really hearing a lot of information from their camp at all. And, I hit up Jens a few times and was just like, what's going on? Do we have like two months to the tour? Do we have any plans of what's going on? Do you want me to help advance, anything like that? And he's like, yeah, just kind of hang tight. I'll get information to you. And I think a lot of you guys that are fans of the band probably know at this point. What I didn't know at the time was that their singer Nico was actually going through a lot of health issues. The simple way to put it is that he had a severe ear infection that had also spread to like a jawbone infection, which I didn't even know was a thing at the time. And, I think they went as long as they possibly could to try and not cancel the tour. But at one point, Nico's doctor had told him, like, you can't get on a plane with an ear infection like this. Like, you can't fly anywhere. Like, you especially on a long haul flight over to the United States. And they unfortunately got to the point where they had to cancel this entire tour. And for me, it was kind of a bummer because I was actually looking really forward to going on the road with these guys and getting to know them and stuff like that. So I just kind of chalked it up to like, whatever, maybe they'll come back, maybe not. Who knows? And again, I didn't really know any of the guys, so it's not like I stayed in touch with anybody. I had no reason to talk to Jens or anybody else for quite a while. And a couple months later, I ended up going out with Powerwolf. As a guitar tech while they came over to the US to do a tour. So at least got a little bit of experience, going on tour with a German band over here and stuff like that. But right about the time, I think it was about halfway through that tour, I got another phone call from Jens, Electric Callboys manager, saying like, hey, we're rebooking another US tour and we definitely want you to come back out again. Are you still interested? And talked to my wife and she's like, yeah, like cool. And, he had started getting information to me right away. Like they knew for sure, like this tour is happening. Like Nico's better. We're making this happen. Sent me their production rider right away, stuff like that. But at the time I was still only supposed to be guitar teching, right? He just sent me their production rider because I was the American on this side so I could see everything that they needed and stuff like that. Well, I think it was maybe like 4 or 5 months before the tour started, Jens started sending me information for the crew, for for personnel, so we could figure everything out, how many bunks we needed for a bus, stuff like that. And I noticed when I went through the production, the crew personnel list, Jan was listed on there. For anybody that doesn't know, Jan is Electric Callboys guitar tech. And right away I was like, that's really weird. Like, if they want me to come out and guitar tech, why is Jan on this list? So I called Jens and I was like, hey, I'm going through the crew personnel list. Like, obviously there's like 6 band members, 9 crew guys that you're bringing over with you. But I noticed that your normal guitar tech is on here. Is that a mistake or what's going on? And he's like, and then this is where the accidental tour manager part kind of came in. He was like, no, we actually decided that, budget and just making things easy, we're going to bring our normal guitar tech. And I was like, so then what do you want from me at this point? He's like, well, we were hoping that you would just tour and production manage everything at this point. And for me, I've said many times in this channel, in this industry, there is a certain sense of like, fake it till you make it. Like there have been gigs I've taken before that I probably was not qualified for that I've just been like, yeah, sure. And I just played it off like no problem. I was like, yeah, cool. No problem, dude. Like that'll be cool. I'll tour manage and handle the production for everything. And he's like, cool. So let's plan on that. And yeah, we'll start working on everything. Now, the funny backstory to this that you kind of need to know is I've never really been a tour manager before. I have been a production assistant on tours. I have been an assistant tour manager on tours, but I've never been like the one person in charge of everything going on. It almost happened once in 2013, 10 years before that. I had toured with Sick Puppies for a little bit. As their assistant tour manager, and the main goal was for me to replace their normal tour manager who was leaving. And that did happen. I did a whole tour with them as the assistant tour manager, and then their tour manager left, and then I was promoted to acting tour manager, and then I quit before I ever did a show with them as the tour manager. That's a story for another day. That's a whole big long thing. But yeah, I was given the tour manager position with Sick Puppies and never made it to one show. I quit. I couldn't, long story short, I couldn't deal with it. I could not handle working with their management and the way things operated over there. So I didn't do it. So up until this Electric Callboy thing, I had never been like the main tour manager on a tour. However, like everything else in this industry, I've seen other tour managers work. I know what a good tour manager does. I know what a bad tour manager does. And I kind of just took all of those things and was like, this is how I'm going to tour manage. And on top of that, I'm actually I'm really a nerd when it comes to like logistics and organization and stuff like that. I really like doing scheduling and data input and numbers and all that. So it kind of works out really well too. But yeah, I told Jens I would do it, and I started getting to work. For a situation like this, where I'm the tour manager in the US, they had a tour manager in Europe. He had never toured the US and wasn't going to come over here. The first thing you do is start reaching out to bus companies to see what's available, because to be fair, in this industry, it's not as easy as just contacting a company and being like, hey, we need a bus for a tour, or hey, we need gear for this tour. Like, there is an inventory that these companies have. So I believe on this one tour, the bus company we went with, which I will never use them again. They were absolutely a horrible bus company to work with. They were literally like my last choice, because post-pandemic, with bus companies in the US, it's just everything was out. Nobody had anything. Like, all my go-to bus companies that I would have went to were like, man, we would love to work with you guys. We just don't have any availability for buses. So in that situation, I just got to kind of go with what's available. So I booked the buses. Then I had to start getting hold of production companies. I had to get offers for production from lighting companies. Audio was easier because over in Europe, they have a contract with TDA, which is Claire in the US. So they just did our stuff and it was easy. But yeah, I spent a couple months literally doing nothing but getting quotes from bus companies and lighting companies and special effects companies and riser decks and stuff like that, and everything that we needed. And then once all that gets put together and we figure out who we're going to use, then I start advancing shows. And when it comes to advancing shows, I get all the contacts for the venues and all the show deals and contracts from their booking agent. And usually my go-to for me, every tour manager works differently, but my go-to for me is usually about 6 weeks to 4 weeks. I will reach out to venues to introduce myself. Hey, I'm Ian. I'm the tour manager for Electric Callboy. We have a show here on this date, and I would like to start my advance for the show. If you're not the person I'm supposed to talk to about this, send me to the right person. And, when you start advancing with venues, you go over every single detail of a tour, like how many bands there are going to be, how many people you have in the crews, what kind of production you're bringing. You talk about all the production that's at the venue. If you come across something that you need that they don't have, you have to rent stuff locally. You go over catering stuff, scheduling, security, every single little detail that goes into a show will get advanced before that show. On most tours, there are some like lower level tours where they just show up and go for it, which I've done, and it is very stressful. But yeah, like super long story short, I won't bore you with all the little things. We get closer to the tour starting. We get all their flights booked, all their visas were taken care of by management, and they get over here. Where did we start that tour? I can't even remember. Oh, yeah, now I remember. This is a fucking nightmare. We rented buses from a company in Nashville, and our first tour date was, I believe, in Portland. Yes, thank you for that in chat. It was in Portland. So to get the buses out there, obviously you have to drive the buses out to Portland. Well, me, I could have flown, but I didn't want to. I wanted to ride with the bus drivers to Portland so I could get to know them. I could get to know how they drive and just get a feel for the buses and stuff. And when you rent buses in production from companies, you have to make deposits, and there's schedules of deposits. Like you don't pay everything up front. You make an original deposit, and then there's a payment schedule for when money is due and stuff like that. There was an issue that arose on that where Electric Callboys management had made the deposit on the buses. No problem. The bus company even confirmed it with me. And then, I'm not joking you, the day that we were supposed to leave, the morning that we were supposed to leave Nashville to drive out to Portland, and I'd given us like 3 days, I think. I was packed. I was getting ready to leave my house, and I got a phone call from the office of this bus company. It's like, hey, we just wanted to let you know you're missing a payment for the buses. And I was like, that's impossible. Like, I literally have the receipts on my computer. Like, I can send you the PDFs of the receipts right now. Like, the bank transfer has been made. That's the thing. With a band working in another country, they were doing an international transfer, which is not immediate. It takes multiple days. Apparently, there was some confusion on the dates or something, and the deposit was sent, but it didn't actually post to this bus company's bank account by the time they wanted it to. So they're like, yeah, so unfortunately, we can't let you take the buses until we get that money. And I was like, dude, we have a 3-day drive to Portland right now. Like, I tried to calm myself down. I was like, okay, I understand this is business. Like, I get that. I 100% understand where you're coming from. But I have the receipt that the wire has been sent. I've given you the international tracking number on it. You can track the payment. This was just a timing issue. And this was, I think, like a Saturday or a Sunday. I was like, it will post in the morning. Like, it will. Absolutely. And they're like, well, we can't do anything for you. Like, we're not letting you take these buses out of Nashville until we get that money. And I'm like, we've already given you like $40,000 fucking dollars. Like, obviously we're going to use these buses. And so I eventually I asked for the phone number of the owner of the company, and I called the owner and was like, listen, man, as a business person, I understand where you're coming from. Like, you want to get that money, but we've already given you guys $40,000 for the deposit on these buses. And I've even sent you the SWIFT number, the tracking number. I've sent your office the receipts. Like, there was just a timing issue where it's an international transfer. Like, you guys can see that we've transferred the money. It's like, yeah, but I've had people do this to me before where they've canceled the transfer before we've got it, and they've taken my buses and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, even if you have, like, again, we've given you money up front. You know we're good for it. So I called Jens and explained to him what was going on, and he was just as furious as I was, because he was like, we've sent him... We've sent them the SWIFT tracking, the SWIFT number, which is on an international wire transfer. It's like, you know, you can track that and see exactly where it is or if it's pending. I was like, dude, what? We can't do anything here. He's like, I can't transfer money right now and make it go any quicker. I was like, the only thing I can think of is if I like use a credit card or something of mine and do it. And the funny thing is, that's what I had settled on myself. I told Jens, I was like, whether you want me to or not, I'm going to do it, because these buses need to get on this tour right now. So I called the owner of the bus company back and was like, listen, man, I'm just going to give you my credit card and like, we're just going to go for it. And he's like, I don't want to do that. And I'm just like, dude, this is ridiculous. So anyways, it just came down to the fact that he goes, I'm not letting these buses leave to drive out to Portland until we get the money. So I was like here at the house, and I kind of told Claire what was going on. And I was like, this is fucking ridiculous, because at this point, that's going to give us like literally 40 hours to get to Portland, Oregon. I was freaking out because the crew was flying in a day before, and we were supposed to meet them, pick them up at the airport and stuff. So there was nothing I could do about it. So that night I stayed at home. And then I woke up at 5 a.m. because I wanted to be awake and ready to go the second I got the text from that bus company or phone call that said the money's good. And wouldn't you know, at 6:30 in the morning, I get a text from the owner of the company that's like, hey, we got the money. You're good to go. The buses will meet you up by you in like an hour. So yeah. So I get on the buses, and I think by that time, we literally had like 44 hours to get to Portland to be able to pick those guys up on time, the crew. And we didn't make it. I will say the 2 bus drivers we had, they tried. They literally would drive, like, it was not legal. I will say that. Like, they They would drive for 8 hours and then sleep for 3 and then go again. They tried to make it. But then that puts me in another situation where I'm like, okay, the crew's getting in with all of this gear and I have no way to fucking pick them up. And I started calling like rental places in Portland, like Sprinters. Nobody had anything available. It's like, God damn it. And this was actually really coincidental. It's one of those like universe moments where you're just like, wow, this is wild. A buddy of mine had texted me and was like, hey man, did you start your tour? And I was like, no. And I told him what was going on. And he's like, where are you going right now? I was like, Portland. He's like, dude, our buddy, like one of our friends that is a production manager on another tour. He's like, our buddy's in Portland right now with Mudvayne. Yeah, they're doing a show like today. And coincidentally, it was at the same amphitheater where we were doing our production day and rehearsals at. So I was like, okay, let me call him. So I texted him. I was like, dude, I know you're probably crazy busy because this is a show day for you. But I explained the situation. I was like, our buses are driving to Portland right now. My crew of 10 people is getting in with a bunch of gear and they are not like, I'm not going to be there to pick them up. Do you by any chance have any runner vans available at your show that would be free to pick them up from the airport? And he's like, not sure. He's like, cause I got to check with the band to make sure they don't need to go anywhere and stuff like that. He calls me back 5 minutes later and he goes, yeah, dude, we got your back. I talked to the band and told them what's going on. They don't need the runner vans. So basically, to get the Electric Callboy crew from the airport with all the gear, my buddy that PM'd Mudvayne got Mudvayne's runner vans and the approval of the band to go pick up my crew and all of their gear at the airport. So that's what they did. While I was still on the buses on the way to Portland, Mudvayne's runners went and picked up the band and all their gear and brought them back. I don't even know where the crew went at that point. I don't know if they went to a hotel. I don't know if they went to the venue. I can't remember, if I'm being honest. But that kind of saved the day. And then when the buses finally got in, we picked up the crew and we met up. And that was the first time I ever met any of the crew in my life. And in my head, I was like, this is probably a very fucking terrible first impression that I'm late to pick them up and stuff like that. The next day we had our production day in Portland at the amphitheater. And it was the first working day with the crew. It was the first time they saw our video carts, our lighting carts, all of our gear that we rented. And then we went to the airport to pick up the band. And it was really funny because I went with the band or the buses to the airport, or the band bus to the airport. And I went inside to meet them to make sure everything went good and stuff like that. The funny thing is they had somehow gotten like ahead of me in the airport. So I turned a corner and I saw them walking and I kind of just like walked up behind them and was just walking with them. And like tapped Kevin on the back and he just like turns around and he's like, oh, hey. So I kind of just surprised them at the airport. And the second we got on the bus, that was the first time I had ever met the band, ever. The first time we got on the bus, we just sat there and talked like we were like old friends, dude. I've never been so comfortable with a band and just like meeting each other. And like, it was a surreal moment for everybody that was like, I'm meeting these guys that I discovered online. Like they're meeting me, who is just to that point had just been some dude on YouTube, like doing interviews with them and talking to them. And here I am tour managing them. And, you know, that's just kind of the lead up into starting the tour. And, you know, not to like go through every single show date or anything like that. But I remember the first show, there were a lot of logistics on this tour that like on the fly, you know, this is why advancing is so important. And even on the venue side, like I wish venues would update their production riders more than they actually did, because our first show in Portland, our video carts didn't even fit through the main doors of the venue, even though their production rider said it would. So we had to do something completely different. We had to take the carts around the building, go through a different door, ramp up. Fuck, it was crazy. But we had a few situations like that on this tour. But I remember after the first couple shows, I was really happy with how smooth everything was going for the most part. And I was stoked. I remember the first time I saw them sound check in Portland, I actually kind of teared up a bit because I was like, it was such a surreal moment. I was like, this is crazy. After the third day of that tour, Jens came to me and was like, just out of curiosity, if we brought you to Europe, could you do what you do here in Europe? Could you tour manage in Europe? And I was like, I'll be honest. I actually was like, I don't know. I mean, tour management is tour management. Sure. It's the same kind of gig, but I don't know the European market. I don't know the venues. I don't know the companies. I don't know, man. I don't know, you know? And he's like, well, you just think about it and let me know. Cause he's like, the band already really likes the way you work and they get along with you and the crew gets along with you. And, you know, we want to have this conversation at some point. And I was like, okay. And for me, as somebody who had never been the sole TM on a tour before, I was like, that was a very humbling thing for me to be like, okay, I'm doing something right here. So we get through that tour. Of course, the now infamous Blue Ridge Rock Fest, that was on this tour. I have a whole video on that if anybody wants to see the shit show that piece of shit festival was. We get to the like last day off of the tour, and you know, I was just having a really good conversation with the band, and Jens was out there. You know, he was at some of the shows, not all of them. And they were just like, man, we really just like love the way you work. Like we get along great. We like the way that you do things, how you interact with people, how you talk to the venue people. Like we would really love to see if we can like bring you to Europe, even as like an assistant TM for who we already have out there and stuff like that. And I think I remember it was at that moment where Pascal was like, yeah, how long have you been tour managing now? And that was when I dropped it on him, where I was like, yeah, I didn't want to tell you guys this, and like, but this is actually the first real time I've ever tour managed. And they were like, what? And he's like, how do you like know how do you have a system together? How do you know what to do? How do you do this? And I was like, I mean, honestly, just paying attention to tour managers that I've had on previous tours. Like I've taken what I don't want to do from the bad tour managers and what I do want to do from the good tour managers. And I've just kind of applied it here. And if I'm being honest, I've always wanted to be a tour manager, so I'm taking this very seriously. Being a tour manager was always my end goal in this industry. From the day I started as a merchandise manager, I wanted to be a tour manager. So yeah, it was just kind of funny telling him that in the moment. I was like, yep, this is my first time. And we get to the end of the tour and we dropped him off at the airport, and that was an emotional moment, man. Like leaving them at the airport, because it was the first time I walked them into the airport. I got them checked in and stuff. And then I went back to the buses, and I was like fucking crying, dude. I've been touring for almost 20 years and I've never had this kind of connection with a band and crew. Like I love everybody out there. And I was like, it was a bummer moment because I legitimately didn't know if I was ever going to see them again, because at that point, like we had already been like, yeah, anytime you come to the US, I'll tour manage you here. But they had a tour manager in Europe. So I was just like, yeah, my dogs have been going nuts this whole time. Sorry if you guys hear them barking. Yeah, it was an emotional time leaving them at the airport to go back home to Germany. And then I got on the bus and drove back to Nashville. And, you know, I got home, and again, I had not planned on touring full time anyway. So that was never part of the thing. And I think maybe like a month later, after I had gotten home, Jens called me and was like, hey, remember how we had that conversation about you coming over to Europe? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, we want to make this happen. We want you to come over here with us. And I was like, well, what about your current TM? And they're like, we want both of you over here. Like he's gonna tour manage and you're gonna basically road manage, which is two different things. We just basically split a lot of the duties of tour management. You remember how I kind of told you guys in a previous story about like you have a lead merchandise manager and an assistant merchandise manager? The lead merchandise manager does a lot of the logistics and numbers and settlements and stuff like that. And then the assistant does a lot of the physical work and everything else. It was kind of all like that. Yeah. I'm talking about Cozy. Cozy is a fantastic human being. I absolutely love that guy. I worked great with him. You know, he handled more of the money and numbers and logistics and advancing and stuff. And then days of the show, I handled a lot of everything else. But I'll get up to that. So, when they offered me that, they're like, we want you with us like everywhere. That was a long conversation that I had to have with Claire, because I was like, yo, I know I never planned on touring full time again, but these guys have given me the offer. They want me with them everywhere. And Claire, she was like, honestly, she goes, if it were any other band, I don't think I would be cool with you being gone on the road all the time again. But like, I see how much you love these guys and how you've got along. And she goes, honestly, I don't think I've ever seen you this happy touring with anybody. Like, you know, I'd always come home from tours just drained and burnt out and stuff. And she's like, you're not like this when you're working with these guys. She's like, you know what? I have no problem with it. So yeah, I agreed to that and told Jens, yeah, let's do it. And in February of 2024, they flew me over for the remainder of their arena tour in Europe. And I basically was like, I would say assistant tour manager, because Cozy handled a lot more of everything. And we did all those shows. And then in May of 2024, they came back to the US again, and I tour managed that again. Cozy didn't come over. And then, yeah, they just kept her like, yeah, this is going to work. Like, we want you. I think after the second US tour, it was when they were like, we want you with us all the time, no matter what, wherever we go. So like, we want you to come back to Europe for summer festival season. So I did that. And then towards the end of summer festival season, Cozy, their tour manager, had told me he was going to leave. No bad blood, nothing like that. It's just, he wanted to do other things. He wanted to be home more, stuff like that. He goes, he's like, my time working for this band full time is coming to an end. So I'm going to tell Jens, but he's like, I'll tell you right now, like this gig is going to be yours. And sure enough, shortly after the summer festival season, I got the call from Jens, and he's like, hey, we talked to Cozy, and Cozy's decided he wants to do other things and he wants to be home more and stuff like that. And we want you to tour manage us full time. Like, you are the guy. Looking back on it now, it's crazy because, you know, we just did Japan and Australia, and I just went over for Escalation Fest, and we've got, you know, a packed year coming up once they're done recording the album. And it's just kind of crazy to think about how much my life and career has changed from like reacting to a band online and then quite literally accidentally becoming their tour manager in the US. And, you know, for anybody that doesn't know, it's like my wife and I have been learning German. Like, my German's progressing pretty good. And at some point we do want to move over to Europe. Probably Germany, not specifically because of Electric Callboy. I mean, that is part of it, but like, we want to try something new and, you know, have our daughter grow up a different way than we did and stuff like that. So it's like, it is quite wild to think about how random all of this was and how it all just came together. Cause, you know, here we are now in February of 2025. And yeah, we've been doing nonstop work preparing for this year. And I've gotten to know this crew and this band. Like, I mean, legitimately, like, I know I've said this a million times in the industry, is like, lots of bands and crews always, you know, oh, we're like a family, and they preach loyalty and shit like that. Like, these guys don't say that. It just is that. Like, this is one of the tightest crews and bands I've ever worked for, and I've legitimately become friends with everybody. Like, I talked to Kevin, their singer, like 2 hours ago, maybe. You know, like, we're and probably all helps that a lot of us are close to the same age. We all have kids and stuff like that. So it's like, we can lean on each other that way. But it's like, this is easily, out of all of the gigs I've ever done, my favorite tour I've ever worked on. And favorite band I've ever worked for, favorite crew. Their crew are absolute rock stars, every single one of them. And it just all was random chance. That was it. That's what a lot of this industry is, man. That's why I always feel bad when people ask me how to get into the industry, and I don't really have a great answer. Like, a lot of it is just random dumb luck. But yeah, that's really about it, man. I really don't know what else to say. That is the story of how I accidentally became the tour manager for probably what is now one of the biggest bands from Germany other than Rammstein. And I will say, it is weird sometimes being the only American out there. Like, people don't expect it at all. Like, when we're at venues and stuff, like, they're so surprised. Like, when I meet people at venues, they're like, how are you the tour manager for a German band? And I don't want to be like the cocky American. It's because I'm fucking good. You know what I mean? No, it's fun though. I love it, man. Like, it's just such a good dynamic, and I love these guys, and it's great. So yeah, I did say this one was going to be quick, but it was not.
So that was a fucking lie.
I went way more into detail than I thought I was going to, but we will wrap it up here, and there'll probably be more story times in the future and stuff like that. But yeah, this is just one of those cool, like, dumb chance, dumb luck moments that happens in this industry. And I just wanted to share that with you guys. So to everybody that was live on Twitch, thank you for being here. Thank you for some of the funny messages and stuff like that. And again, as a reminder, if you're watching on YouTube later, you can go to twitch.tv/TankTheTech, where we film these and we do reactions and do a bunch of other stuff. But until next time, wherever you are in the world, be safe, be kind to each other. I love you all, and I will see you very soon.